Here are 9 things that I wish someone just sat me down and told me before I started selling on Etsy. Etsy is a highly competitive marketplace. There's a lot of traffic that goes to the site, but it's incredibly difficult to get one sale, never mind consistent sales. So after I managed to get a string of successful sales on Amazon KDP, I thought Etsy should be easy. But that's just not the case. And during my time selling on Etsy, I've discovered several things that I wish I knew when I started. So here are 9 things that I've learned. First of all, your product needs to provide value. In order to sell well, it really needs to be different or better than what's already out there on Etsy. Now, this is especially true if you're in popular niches. And if you're competing against hundreds or even thousands of other products, you need to be thinking, what makes your product so valuable? Now, before you go uploading tons of products onto Etsy, it's really important to think about value. The way that I like to do this is ask myself, what value is this product adding? Why would people buy it? And then finally, I also ask myself, would I buy this product? If the answer to all those 3 things is a resounding yes, then it's good to go on Etsy. The next thing is the importance of your first sale and your first review. Now, one thing that I found a little bit different from Amazon KDP to Etsy is the importance of having a 5-star review on your shop. Now, one way around this is to create a really cheap digital download product. So, for example, uploading a sticker for 99 cents. If you then send this to a friend and ask them to purchase it and give you a 5-star review, that review will then show up across your shop and across all of your product range. So as one product review shows up across the whole of your shop on Etsy, that kind of shows the power of just getting that one single 5-star review. I've found that getting that first sale is really tricky if you don't have a 5-star review. We can take a look at my new Craig's Creative shop to see that in action right now. Another one of my shops has got plenty of sales to it, but this one hasn't got that first sale, and therefore I think it's struggling to get off the ground. So what I'll probably do on this shop is create a cheap product, get a friend to purchase it, and leave me that first 5-star review to help get things moving on Etsy. The third and probably most important tip about selling on Etsy is the importance of niche research. There are basically 2 things to consider when you're looking at niche research on Etsy. 1 is the volume of searches, and 2 is the competitiveness. And in an ideal world, what we want to be finding are niches with a lot of search terms, but not much competition. And so how do we find those niches? I use a tool called FABRICA. So FABRICA is a plugin that you add to your web browser. Then when you go onto Etsy, it integrates into the Etsy site, and it gives you loads of incredible niche research options. So say, for example, we're interested in selling colouring pages on Etsy. That makes sense for me because I already sell colouring books on Amazon, so why not sell some of those in packs on Etsy? So if we look at the keyword tool on FABRICA, we can search for colouring books and see if we can find some interesting niches there that we can create colouring pages for. So all we need to do is go over to the sidebar and click Keyword Research. In here, we're going to search for colouring pages. Now you have the keyword, the volume of searches, the amount of competition, and then the keyword score, which basically ranks how good the keyword is. Now what you can do here is also include filters. So in the include section, if I include the word colouring, that means that all of the results have to include the word colouring. So if we scroll down through some of these results, looking at the competitiveness of colouring pages on Etsy, we can already see some interesting ideas. We have artful colouring page with over 400 searches a month. We have downloadable teen colouring pages. So I actually released a teen colouring book not that long ago. So I might use some of these colouring pages and sell them on Etsy because as we see here, there's an estimated 168 searches a month with only 158 competing items. So that's not a bad amount of competition to try and rank against. We have things like Mariola colouring pages, downloadable colouring pages for Easter, gnome house colouring pages. There's even something here which I might look into, which is called colouring pages mid-journey prompt. And so this one is getting an estimated 46 searches a month, but it doesn't have much competition. And if we search for that on Etsy, people are actually selling prompts for colouring pages. You've got here a colouring book, mid-journey prompts for kids. If we click on that, we can see what this includes. So this includes a mid-journey prompt guide to create beautiful colouring pages. So that's incredible. That shows how important it is to look at niche research, because I would never have thought of selling mid-journey prompts on Etsy. So that's going to be the next thing that I make on my Etsy shop. If you want to try out FABRICA for yourself, you can get a free trial by clicking the link in the description below. The next tip is one that I didn't really consider that much when I started, and that is the importance of the product image on Etsy. Now, everyone says don't judge a book by its cover, but as we know from publishing on Amazon, everybody does. And the book cover is probably the most important thing about your product. On Etsy, it seems to be exactly the same. So if you're not trying to create that product image that stands out and looks better than your competition, you're really missing a trick. Let's say someone does a search and your product comes up. If it doesn't stand out against the competition, people aren't going to click on it. And so my advice would be, when you've got an idea in mind for a new product listing, create the cover or at least a template of it first. That will allow you to make the best image possible. And then if you need to drag and drop any items from your product into there, go ahead and do that. But it's almost working in reverse and creating your product image first, because that is one of the most important things on Etsy. Now that could take quite a lot of time. And that's why my next tip involves creating lots of time-saving hacks. What do I mean by this? Well, you can create things that work across multiple listings, such as templates. So let's say you sell digital products on Etsy. This might include things like stickers, colouring pages, mid-journey prompt guides. For each of those type of listings, you can create a template for your product image and for your description. Then you don't have to create these bespoke every time. You just update the details and any images on the product image, and it can save you a lot of time. It also adds a nice amount of consistency across your products on your Etsy shop. Tip number 6 is the importance of SEO on Etsy. Etsy is almost entirely a search engine driven marketplace. So the best way to get sales organically on Etsy is to rank for search terms. One way to do this is to use tools like Adobe to do your keyword research, and make sure you're including important keywords and keyword strings in your title, your description, and in your keywords as well. My next tip is not Etsy specific. It can also be used across Amazon, and that is to lean into unfair advantages. By this, I basically mean lean into the things that you're knowledgeable about. One thing that I know quite well, for example, is fantasy sports. Not everybody who's creating content on Etsy and Amazon know that much about fantasy sports. And so if I lean into that, my product will be better because I know what people are interested in within the fantasy sports genre. And I might include things that other people who don't play fantasy sports would miss out. So if you're leaning into areas of knowledge, or even areas that you might have a potential customer base in, you're going to have that unfair advantage. And that's one of the best ways to sell more products on Etsy. So let's say you're in a Facebook group of horror fans. If you create a horror product and you're allowed to share that in that Facebook group, you're already reaching people unfairly that other people on Etsy aren't reaching. And that's what I mean by an unfair advantage. Make sure you lean into every advantage that you have, because you're going to need them to be successful on Etsy. Tip number 8 is to build yourself as a brand. If possible, it's great to have a website, but if not, make sure you at least have an email sign-up form so you can capture customer emails. So not only does this make you look more professional to have a brand and to have a website, but if you're capturing customer emails, that gives you a direct route to talk to your potential customers. So if you release a new product or you put an old product on sale, you've got a way of letting your customers know without advertising. So if you can build an email list of potential customers, that is incredibly important. It's something that I've not done yet for my Craig's Creative Shop, but it's definitely the next thing that I need to do to take it to the next level. And my final tip is to use Etsy ads. If you're in a competitive niche, there is a very small chance of ranking organically for a search term. So how are you going to reach your potential customers without using ads? Now, there's two ways to go about that. One could be publishing in a really uncompetitive niche that doesn't have many searches a month, and you're going to struggle to sell that way. And the other way is publishing in a really competitive niche and you're going to struggle to rank organically in that area. So like I mentioned, we want to find the middle ground, and we can use ads to help bump ourselves up in the search listings. All of these tips together are going to help your ads perform better and help you to have the best return on investment possible. I hope these tips were useful, and I've got one more bonus tip for you. And that's to focus on what's been successful for you and to build on it. So if you're seeing sales in some areas and not others, look at why you're getting sales in those areas. Is it the niche? Is it the product? Is it your cover images? Try and take what's selling already and build new products based on those learnings. All right, there we have it. I hope these tips were useful and they help you to sell more products on Etsy. If you've got any Etsy tips, drop them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.